Hoi!
Bonjour!
Okay, so today we have a special language video. I have a guest here.
That's me.
You're gonna have to say your own name because I'm scared to say it.
My name's Gaëlle, but everyone calls me Gaëlle, Gaëlle, or Gaëlle, or Gaëlle.
I can relate. That's why we're making this video, because we are both bilingual and we figured it'd be fun to have a chat about that.
People who are not bilingual have some kind of interesting questions about things we don't really think about.
We met each other on the internet and...
That's not true!
I actually forgot that that's how we met.
So I work in a coffee shop, and this one time Sana came in and I was like, hey, I watch your videos, and she went like, what? This has never happened to me. It's really nice to be friends with people who can relate, because sometimes being bilingual is a problem because everything gets really mixed up. Well, basically the one question I always get is, what language do you dream in?
I get that one quite a lot too. I don't know, because you don't dream in a language.
Dreaming is just a thing that happens, and I'm not really sure if there's a language, or if it's English, or if it's French, or if it's a mixture of both. Could be Spanish for all I know.
Maybe I'm fluent in French in my dreams. So the answer to that is we don't know.
Concerning what language do we think in, that's an interesting one.
I've been thinking in English for a really long time, and I think it only switches if I go back to the Netherlands for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same for me. When I was growing up in France and I started getting interested in English and stuff, I started thinking in English and always thought it was really weird and that people would call me a freak if I told people I was doing my homework in French and thinking in English.
For me, it wasn't even just my thinking, it was also just my inner dialogue. You know, when you have like your out loud inner dialogue? I would just sometimes intentionally switch that to English just because it's fun and more interesting.
But the thing is, that inner dialogue is a lot of like conversations that you rehearse and like conversation that you imagine and stuff, and a lot of my involved like the idea of going to England or living in England or talking to English people, so it was all in English. And then I moved to England, so now it feels a bit normal. And even when I go back to France, I tend to still think in English, which makes communication
difficult.
A pain.
I'm on this website called Duolingo. I'm brushing up on both my French and my German. German's pretty close to Dutch, and this website assumes that you're English, so you have to translate German words into English. So in my head I'm going German, Dutch, English, English, Dutch, German. It's the most confusing thing in the world.
I used to have that. Last year I took Spanish classes. We were doing Spanish classes as English people, except I'm French, so sometimes I knew the answers in French, sometimes I knew them in English. It was all supposed to be in Spanish. I stopped going there. Also, they canceled my classes. Don't learn languages, kids, because it's gonna mess with your brains.
Yeah, it messes you up. There's one thing that we both do that we discovered. I still count in Dutch in my head and also out loud. Like, I was at the Penguin offices and we had to send all these envelopes. There were like 100 of them and I had to count them, and I was sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somehow requires too much effort to do it in English. Like, I could if I wanted to.
It's just not natural, and it's particularly a problem when I'm at work, because sometimes I do this thing when I've got French customers coming in and I just don't want to be bothered with the whole language thing. I think my accent is good enough that I don't realize I'm French, so I just keep speaking English, and then they give me change and I count it in French. It just gets a bit awkward.
It takes up so much brain power for some reason, and counting in your own language, you don't even think about it. Spelling,
I just can't do it in English. Let's say it again. I work in a coffee shop where we put names on the cups. People spell names and I'm just like, sure, writing Bob and Mary.
I can spell things myself, but when people spell words to me, if it's over 4 letters, I'm gone. The thing that I do with one of my Dutch friends, when we talk to each other, because we're both bilingual, we will switch from Dutch to English and the other way around. In the middle of sentences, we'll do one word in one language, one in the other, and it just happens. And when people hear us in public, they think that we're kind of trying to be cool or showing off. I've heard that before from people like, stop speaking English, it sounds like you're trying too hard.
Yeah,
you pick the phrases that are easiest in that language, or kind of when we're talking about YouTube, we automatically switch to more English, or when we're talking about university, we might switch to more Dutch. That just happens, and apparently that's a natural process, and it's really fun.
I've got something as well with, I've got a French friend, and when we call each other, we always get confused, and it takes us a whole 5 minutes to decide sort of which language we're gonna speak in, and then, but it just changes. This one place we met up for lunch in an English sort of speaking place, but in France. Confused everyone in the place because they didn't know whether we were French or English. They didn't know which language we were supposed to speak, and even we didn't know what language we were supposed to speak with them. I ordered in French and then she ordered in English.
I have that all the time as well. I'm always showing American friends around Amsterdam and Leiden because I sound American. The waitress assumes that I'm American as well because I'm talking to my American friend explaining the Dutch menu to her, and then I order in Dutch and the waitress just doesn't know what to do.
Dear world, we're really sorry for confusing you.
Can't help it. That's the end. It's good. If you have any questions for us, you can leave them in the comments and we'll both be answering them.
Sure, we will.
Au revoir!
Doei!
Don't forget to vote for my video in the biggest, baddest bucket list competition. You can vote 5 times a day and all the information is in the description. Bedankt!